Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cavs split their home and home against the Mavericks in a very unexpected way, blowing out the Mavericks on the road, having a blowout loss at home. I think those were games that we expected the Cavs to win, but they had a letdown, another afternoon letdown game for the Cavs. And joining me to discuss that, as well as their upcoming road trip, is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
There's a lot of discourse, in the world today. How do I get involved? How do I help the world be a better place? And I think the number one way to do so would be to petition the league and ask for no afternoon games in the postseason. Of all the things, hurting the world right now, I think that might be the absolute biggest problem we've got because this team just doesn't play well in the afternoon.
No.
This is like their sixth or seventh no-show of the season in that time slot. I don't want to sugarcoat it. This was a disappointing game, but I want to start positive on an episode where I think we're going to poke maybe some holes and address some concerning trends. But let's get the fun stuff out of the way right away, which is that Max Strus came back, baby.
It was so fun to have Max come back. I didn't know what to expect. There was a report before the game saying, hey, he's going to have to play his way into game shape. And it looked like that. It looked like times where he was a step slow, where he was trying to catch his breath to some extent, but it did not impact his shot. Max went 6 of 7 from 3. He was playing physically. He was hitting the boards. That was great to see.
Got to the line 4 times.
There's just a level of maturity that I really enjoy with Max Strus that as much as we've had some good play on the wing this season, there's just a level of understanding that I appreciate so much.
Knows how to hoop.
The spacing. He is going to rotate with the play. He is going to be in the right spot from a spacing standpoint at all times. There's just a high IQ in where he's supposed to be on the defensive end. A couple times maybe caught a little flat-footed. I expect it to take some time there, but he's just. I've said it a million times before, but I think the reason why he's kind of been my favorite role player that the Cavs have had, over the years, even going back to some of those glory years, is just the level of intensity he plays with, the way that he checks so many boxes without really taking anything off the table. It was so nice to see Max out there, just providing the energy that I think has been lacking particularly on an afternoon game where not a lot of guys were bringing kind of the energy level that was necessary.
Yeah, he was really fun to watch. Obviously, you just saw all the things that you really like. You didn't see everything, as you mentioned. No. I thought he looked a step slow defensively, and it's just so hard in that first game when you haven't been able to run because you're dealing with a foot injury. I if there's a guy I really believe in to get his conditioning up as fast as possible in the wake of this, it's Max. On offense, I just thought he was phenomenal. The shot making was there. There's the fact that he is a contested wing shot maker is just so valuable. There's a guy like Keon Ellis who's been shooting the cover off the ball as of late. He certainly didn't in this game, but Ellis is a guy you kind of need to be open, and Max just isn't. And that is a real material difference to how you operate, especially when you get Sam Merrill back, because now you have two guys that are just like going to inspire panic when they're coming off a curl. And now because of Sam's growth, two guys who can attack the negative space that's created by those hard closeouts.
There was times he was drawing two. Two defenders were coming on him when he was on the court with Donovan Mitchell. They're like, yeah, no, we need to get this out of Max's hands. And he's always been someone where you look at kind of the shot difficulty numbers. That was one of the things that we identified in his time in Miami, where almost nobody took more difficult shots than him. And we're like, okay, well, coming into this Cavs system, he's going to get a few more kind of wide open opportunities. And it's true, he did get some, higher frequency of open opportunities, but that shot difficulty was still incredibly high because he's someone that's willing to take and make those tough shots. And I think Jalen Tyson's no dip threes, has kind of allowed him to take more 3-pointers than in his rookie year, where the shooting motion takes time with Tyson, and I think it caused him to pass up some shots. He is taking more of those contested shots, but it's just different than this very quick release that you see from a Max Strus or a Sam Merrill. So having two of those guys, at some point we'll have two of those guys available for us. I think it's going to make a big difference.
We can move off Max soon, but I did also want to say, I don't know if you guys saw his post-game availability, where he clearly got like choked up. Of course it's Max. Max ain't gonna cry, but you could see he was fighting it back, and you could tell how meaningful it was for him to be out there. And you could even Kenny's pregame comments, like, this is a guy this whole team really roots for, really rallies around, and heck, the fan base. I mean, the crowd was going ballistic in a game where, frankly, the Cavs didn't give them a lot to cheer for, and in some cases, did the inverse. I think, like, watching them just go absolutely nuts for Max as he, took over stretches of this game and was one of the only reasons the Cavs kept it close as long as they did. Was a really special thing to see.
Yeah, and I think these kind of human moments are really important, right? Because the regular season is so damn long, and I think sometimes the game can get reduced to stats and how you've performed over your last 15 games and all those sorts of things, where we kind of take the human element out of it. And it's one thing that I've enjoyed kind of from the last couple of weeks here, where, on the one hand, it's terrifying that Jason Tatum is back to a very good Boston team, but like seeing him and DeJounte Murray come back, and the way like the Tyrese Halliburton and these other players have reached out, James talking to him, saying congratulations. I think the amount of work that goes into these long rehabs is sometimes taken for granted for fans, right? And
not for Justin Rowan.
No. Well, maybe that's part of why it's touching me a little more than it may have in the past. But, someone like Max, who no one has ever accused this guy of not being a psychotic worker, right? And that he was putting in that level of work. I remember the reports back in December where it was like, hey, we have to almost scale him back a little bit because he's trying to do so much. So obviously the team has been very careful with him. This is something that, given the fact that those Jones fractures are that bone that connects your little toe to the rest of your foot, that is such a vulnerable area that you pivot on, and it's just awful for a basketball player to come back from. To see him moving around well, to see him playing with confidence, and just kind of seeing the emotion after the game, it didn't surprise me, but it was definitely something that touched me. And Carter, while we're on the subject, you said might talk about a disappointing performance and all those things, sugarcoat maybe on the front end. I got a little bit of sugar for you here. How about this? Do you feel any better about the loss to the Celtics, where it just might be, hey, this is just who we are in the afternoon? Like, if we lose like that to the Dallas Mavericks, is Boston even that much better, or is it just
this is a high quality zag, my friend?
Thank you. I just wanted to throw it out there. And, obviously with Max returning, it's nice to take a step in the right direction, getting a little bit healthier. We do have some disappointing injury updates. The Cavs announced just prior to this podcast that Jared Allen will be out for the road trip, which is the next 3 games. Kenny had mentioned that it's kind of a day-to-day thing with severe knee tendonitis. So hopefully he is trending in the right direction there. Craig Porter Jr. will be out the next 1 to 3 weeks, and Tyrese Proctor is also ruled out for this road trip.
Yeah, it made me, we can talk about that, a little bit more in depth, but it did make me want to kind of pull up the numbers and get a sense of like, hey, how dire has it been? Has it been as rough of an injury year as it feels? So I went ahead and pulled up some numbers through 68 games. This season and last season in terms of games played for the core 4. I went ahead and combined Darius and James, since they are in the aggregate our point guard over the course of this year. They've played a combined 40 games for the Cavs. Last year, Darius had played 64 of the 68.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell had played 60. that had played 62 this year. He's played 60, so he's actually been the closest to even. Evan played 60, he's only played 51, and Jarrett had played all 68, and he's played 51. And so, like, you're missing a lot more time from your top end guys. This is not, a woe is me effect. That's just what's the case. And then I went ahead and was like, well, let's just see how many total games missed due to injury. I went to Spot Track, who does a great injury tracker. And so far, the Cavs have lost 229 total games to injury this season across their roster. Last year, for their entire season, Justin, the number was 168. And that's with right. Max missing, the first, 20, 25, 30 games with the foot injury last year. And then I thought, well, 2 years ago was our season from hell. Our absolute, the season that ended up costing JB Bickerstaff his job. The bad vibe season where nothing really clicked together. They lost 279. And frankly, if they stay on this track, they're not going to be too far away from that number. And, I just think it is really disappointing just to see yet another year just like getting messed up from injuries and it's not, certainly nothing's ruined, but like the evaluation period, as you talked about on the last pod, is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And, by the time this 3-game road trip is finished, they'll only have 11 games left.
Yeah. And again, I don't think guys are going to be playing in game 82, or if they do, it might be for a quarter, right? Fan appreciation and all that. You're just kind of, we're just going to have to see what happens in the playoffs, right? Like, I think the reality is there might be a bumpier road than we expect, but like this Dallas game didn't bother me as much as the Orlando one. Like, it's disappointing, but I think this was very clearly just kind of a low effort game for the Cavs. And we've talked about it earlier in the season where when they were trying to find their footing and establish it really for the first time all year, it was like, okay, well, it's until the buy-in and the effort gets to the level that we were accustomed to last year, it's kind of hard to make an evaluation. And the thing that we've said with this team all season is they seem to respond better to adversity than they do success. And when, they get a blowout win against the Mavericks coming off of a loss, it's okay. Now they're gearing up. They went for the throat. They got it done. Coming off a blowout win, foot off the gas, tough to get into gear in that afternoon game, right? And to me, the effort component of this kind of starts with the guards. I thought that both James Harden and Donovan Mitchell were really flat in this game. And when those are, the leaders of the offense, the orchestrator of what's going on the court, and really the leaders in your locker room too, they're the ones that need to set the tone. And this was just a game where they didn't do it, right? Like James had a really, really poor game. Donovan didn't, I think he had like 16 points in the fourth quarter until, they were down 20 and then he kind of had a late flurry. But for the most part, just the engagement level was low. And I think you can have a passive game sometimes from the stars. Like, let's say Donovan's not hunting his shot at the same level that you would expect in a playoff game. But I do think you still need to have that high engagement level, right? On the defensive end, making the most of the possessions that you have, playing, with attentiveness. I thought it was lacking from both of the guards in this one.
Yeah, I think that's I think you're spot on. It really is it's kind of like a duty of care issue where I think Kenny kind of spoke to what was in my brain in his post-game availability. It was like, hey, on a night where physically you're having a hard time getting ramped up, you need to account for that with mental sharpness, with a focus and an attention to detail. And I kind of just thought the Cavs didn't do that either. And I think the guards were a big part of that. A lot of these kind of like, this might be a crass way to frame it, and apologies if it is, but I thought there were like a lot of no thought possessions, where it's like the frontal cortex was never engaged. It was like, I'm just gonna go do some stuff, and like when you're down 8 points and you need to string a couple sharp possessions together. Those kind of possessions just kill you if you don't get away with really good shot making. Which, by the way, the Cavs stayed in this game in the first half primarily due to some very lucky shot making. A lot of
it's not like it was an outlier game where, hey, we generated a lot of good shots. Like, I thought their shot making outpaced the process to get to those shots. And I think what you're getting at there is kind of like, this is the set we run and this is the pass that I throw, where in today's modern NBA, it's a lot of read and react, right? Like, you have to apply pressure to the defense. You have to make a sharp read of what the defense is giving you. You know what the weak side action is going to be. It was just like, okay, what's my first read? I'm throwing to it no matter what, right? And some of those bad pass turnovers or passes that were just a little bit off, there just wasn't the attention of detail that we're really accustomed to. And I think maybe some of this, like, if I'm to give a charitable read here, Donovan Mitchell and James Harden are guys with very extended track records. And to some extent, they're probably feeling what we're feeling, which is like, hey, we just kind of want to get to the playoffs here, right? Like, this is games that don't matter as much. They are not measuring sticks.
Yeah. And we know, by the way, March games have of any regular season game, March games have the least historical bearing on success.
Almost no correlation. So on the one hand, I get that, but then from a fan standpoint, it is, hey, you don't have a lot of time together as a group here. You can't, like, to me, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it is all just going to click. And the realities of the way that the playoffs are structured with the play-in is teams like the Cavs are going to get a week off. They are basically going to get a mini training camp going into the postseason. I think we've even seen some years where, like that Orlando series, we didn't feel great about the Cavs form heading into the playoffs. And they came out game 1 and game 2. They looked fantastic against Orlando, right?
Yep.
Like they just absolutely rolled them. So maybe this is fear over nothing.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
it probably is based on historicals.
Right. So we know that there isn't the correlation, but we also know that we are up against history of teams that have made these types of shakeups don't have a track record of success in the postseason. So from my standpoint, it's not giving me reason for concern, but I'm not building confidence seeing these types of games, right? And not that another 30-point blowout against the Mavericks would really fundamentally shake up how I feel about this team. I think their ability to make
they can only really lose in this game from our perspective, you know?
Right. So I firmly believe that this team is capable of making an NBA Finals run. But if I'm looking for, okay, just examples of everything clicking together with this group, I'm not being provided with a lot of that right now. And I think where the most concern is on the defensive end of the floor, because I don't think that is something that you can just flick a switch. I think you do need to have enough reps where everybody is bought in, where there's the communication, where you assess the points of failure, and then you kind of build off of that. I think the offense, this team's going to be able to figure it out, even if, there's 70% effort the rest of the way. But I think building the proper habits on the defensive end is important, particularly when, having lost through 3 of the last 5 games here, it's looking more and more likely that you're in that 4 or 5 side of the bracket here. That means in Eastern Conference, where we're kind of assuming at the trade deadline, hey, there might be 1 or 2 teams that you really have to think about. You might have legitimately 3 difficult series with teams that are starting to find their form. Orlando's playing better basketball now.
The second round in a row.
The second round might. The second round is going to be a tough series, likely against Detroit, and then
the Hawks have won 9 games in a row. Justin, my goodness.
Yeah, like teams are finding their form. They're streaking at the right time. Orlando's going to get Franz back. So I would say historically, having both Franz and Paulo doesn't necessarily equal a better product for them, but you're not going to have kind of that layup series that you had last year, if I had to guess, with the Miami Heat.
No, I don't. I mean, that's what it is to be a 4 seed instead of the 1 seed, is you have harder matchups the whole way through, That's why I'm team win as many games as you can all the time. It's definitely a kind of a scary stretch, and I think you're right to worry about the defense. And I gotta say, I think Jarrett missing this time, especially in the new construction of the roster, I think it's so funny through all the variations of this team, um, and through all the different ways that this team has tried to kind of diversify themselves and get away from it. We're kind of back to this team needs Jared and Evan, and they need them across 48 minutes. They don't need them both on the court at the same time across 48 minutes. Like, you do need to stagger them. But this team just really loses a lot of what they are when they don't have one of those two guys out there.
Yeah. And I talked about it on the podcast with Tony, but I really feel like that's
great job on that one, by the way.
I thank you. Tony's the best. You guys make sure you're going and supporting him. If you didn't listen to the podcast because it wasn't on YouTube, go back and check it out. But I gotta say, like, I feel fundamentally that is the bedrock of this team right now. Is the defensive tandem of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen is our most known commodity, right? For all the struggles that this team has had in the playoffs, defense hasn't been one of them, particularly because you have a significant amount of time that those two are out there. And right now, without that, you are having these stretches where the integrity of the defense is dependent on how the perimeter holds up
and how attentive your guards are off ball, and that's just not what they do.
Right. And I talked about it before, how those Tyson, Donovan, and James minutes are just not working out well. It's very possible that those are going to work out, right? It's 126 possessions. It's very possible that those minutes work out with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Only 3 of the 126 have come with them, so we don't have a sample size of that. But those are probably right now your 3 least attentive off-ball players. And I think you're seeing, as we're playing some of this weaker competition, the on-ball attentiveness, even of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, hasn't necessarily been where it needs to be, right? The Cavs are the only team with a winning record that has lost 2 games since the All-Star break against bottom 10 teams.
Yeah, these are supposed to be the games that you can't lose.
Right. And I think one way to really capture that is if you look. So basically these last 5 games, Jarrett goes out of the lineup, Donovan comes back in. I think obviously you are going to take a little bit of a step back on the defensive end when you're kind of making that swap. But I think there have been games where Donovan and James have been completely locked in.
Yep.
But I do think particularly the Orlando in this game against Dallas, it was a little bit tough. And you look at the losses over this stretch, Donovan and James together in those losses have a 122 defensive rating together. In the 2 wins, it's a 107.5. Some of that's going to be competition, right? Like it's Philly with nobody, and then it's the Dallas Mavericks. But you also see the difference of playing the Dallas Mavericks when you're engaged, versus when you're not engaged. This is still a league that is full to the brim of talent. Even with teams that have injuries, you still have guys that are capable of coming out there and stepping up.
Yeah.
Particularly
I can point to a fourth quarter possession last night or yesterday afternoon where Cavs, I think, are within 12. They've cut it down. It's like now at least faux competitive. And Brandon Williams just waltzes by Harden on a straight isolation, straight line drive for a layup. And it basically was like, all right, I think we're done here.
Right. And, obviously you can point to some late game lapses too, right? Like what's concerning to me is I just feel defense is so much more habit based, whereas offense, I trust this group to turn it on and be sharp offensively when they need to be.
May I advocate on behalf of the devil a little bit here?
I'll just finish my point. I was like that Boston game having those lapses where you leave Shireman open for those corner threes on back-to-back possessions, and then a couple games later against Orlando, the exact type of action is run, and you're helping off, and you're not paying attention, and you get burned with those corner threes from De Silva. Like that to me is illustrative of habits, and I would tie that back to what we saw in the Christmas Day game, where I think the effort level flipped, right? That was when we saw the shift for the Cavs. They bought in, they were playing great basketball, but that loss to the Knicks on Christmas, I still believe was the result of some of those old habits from the last couple of weeks sneaking in despite the effort level being there the entire night, those bad habits came back and bit them in that game. Whereas if that game was played maybe 2-3 weeks later when they had been playing consistent good basketball and the communication was so much better, I don't think that you have that same kind of a collapse. So I'm just a big believer in developing and reinforcing those positive defensive habits.
Yeah, I think that's a smart take and a good take and a correct take. I will say the one thing I do like when I was watching the game, that very Brandon Williams ISO possession that I referenced, I did sit there and think, I bet he chops the feet a little harder in April.
Oh, for sure.
or May. And like, you know, you're in that game, all the attentiveness off ball in the world wasn't going to save them because the effort level at the point of attack was and the you know, Kenny called it an inexcusable effort, and you know I have to echo it from my exceedingly less qualified seat, and you know I think like nothing was going to save that, and like it does make it does make for a stinkier cologne when you've got kind of the perfect storm that happened against that Dallas team yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and I don't think it should surprise anybody that we are such advocates for this team trying to find that harmony and get into a groove, because we know that teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together, so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead in Zoom Workplace.
I want to talk a little bit about Keon Ellis, who
Okay.
I thought, you know, we haven't really had a ton to poke at with Keon thus far in his Cavs tenure. He's been really, really good, really, really fun. I thought this was one of the first games where I felt like I saw some cracks in the process. And I think I would just want to start with like, brother, you can't pass up threes.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of, because like I think we kind of saw we've seen him in really optimized situations where he can be the transition guy and the threes guy. You know, much like Okoro was, but a higher volume kind of player. But I gotta say, you know, again, and I have to be really careful about comparing to former Cavs, and I'm not doing it to be like, here's why he's better, or here's why he's worse. More just as a frame of reference.
Yeah.
You know, within the construct of this team that we've been watching, I kind of trusted Okoro a little bit more drive into the hoop to be able to make the dish off pass.
Yeah.
You know, I think the strength
we like the connective playmaking.
yeah,
right?
the
Like
strength allowed him to be a more upright guy. He never had the bend that he needed to actually shake loose, but like he at least could stay on balance on the attack. There's a lot of like, if Keon doesn't get the call on the bump, it kind of goes nowhere. So it's like, hey, unless you have a very easy read to make on a drive and then kick, like if you're open on the wing, like I think your job just needs to be to shoot it, you know? And I think about a team like the Boston Celtics who are so freaking disciplined in that way, where like Sam Hauser and Baylor Shireman are not allowed to not take some of the threes that Keon passed up against Dallas. Again, they didn't lose this game on the offensive end, but I did think it was an interesting like first thing to be like, all right, brother, there's a thing for you to keep an eye on and to work on in high leverage moments. He also didn't shoot well, so maybe he was like trying to like, hey, the three doesn't feel good today, so I'm going to try to attack a little more. Like, so yeah, that's the stuff we can't know, but yeah, that's my little grain of salt to that take.
Yeah, and if you don't want to compare to a former Cavalier, I think it's one of the things we like about Jalen Tyson too, right? Like we like his playmaking and kind of those reads on the roll. I think I don't feel the same way about Keon kind of making that off of the cut when he gets the ball on the move. And this is probably tied into the stats you had earlier about games missed. I am looking with a microscope at all times when I see guys. I'm like, oh, are they grimacing a little bit? I thought when Keon went up for the dunk in the second quarter, kind of looked like he ran back holding his hand, and I was thinking about the fractured finger on his left hand. If he aggravated it, maybe that had some impact. But you're right. When you get those opportunities, you need to take those open shots. And we haven't had a lot of things to poke at, right? Because Keon's been finding things to poke at on the defensive end. He has been so active. He's been doing so many positive things out there. And I was actually thinking, because when we were having that conversation about who you go about starting, I was sitting there watching the Dallas game on Friday, which, that was a perfect Friday game. I know we've had this conversation a million times, but all I want on a Friday evening after a week of work is a blowout Cavs win. I don't need stress. I don't need it to be a great game. I want low stress, fun game. That was exactly that. But I was sitting there being like, hey, if you don't really trust Jalen with the two guards just on the defensive end, and you want to balance the rotation and have Dean out there, because the only way that you're not going to be small is if you have Dean as the second big with either Evan or Jared. Maybe you do start Keon, right? And I that thought also just left my head as soon as I saw Max moving around there, where I'm just like, hey, the playoffs start April 18th. That's about a month to get your conditioning up. I don't expect it during that time, but game one of the playoffs, if he's feeling good and he's running around out there, it might just be easiest to go
Isn't
back to
it
Max.
so funny how quick?
That's all reliable right there.
You were just like, you were so sure, like, can't count on Max. Gonna need him to be ninth man. I'm not asking this guy to play more than 14, 15 minutes. One game later.
This is once again my bias just kicking in one direction. Sometimes your bias goes in a positive direction. Sometimes it's in a negative direction.
I think that's a positive bias. It's I
have such an affinity for how he plays, and it was just so nice to see out there. And also, like, it is a legitimate question, right? Like, it is when you are integrating all of these new pieces, right? And as much as he is an old familiar face, he hasn't played with Keon. He hasn't played with Dennis. He hasn't played with Thomas Bryant. He hasn't played with a whole variety of different guys here. Having a bedrock in place, having things that are familiar to help provide the structure for these guys that are wild cards, that are bringing something new to the table, I think that's a benefit. Realistically speaking, I don't think you can start them like in the regular season. Like, that might have to be, hey, we're going to try to get you in shape over the next month here. And if you're at that point, this might be a change that you see midway through the playoffs, right? It's very possible too that, hey, Jalen, the numbers, particularly when Jared comes back to the lineup and you have both of those bigs, you feel better about the performance there, because it's not just the on-ball stuff. I think or the off-ball stuff. I think he's taken a bit of a step back recently, maybe hitting a bit of a wall on the point of attack and his on-ball presence defensively. Maybe it does just work out fine with Dean when you have the two bigs out there that, hey, Dean is the starter, but the way we stagger it, the way we work the rotation, and the way other guys have pitched in, Max playing some backup power forward, maybe that all works and that rotation concern isn't there. A lot of these rotation conversations we have and concerns we have are because it's hypothetical, because we haven't seen this full group together. So we're just going off of what's available in front of us. So, like, trying to make extrapolations from there.
Yeah, it is just so easy to imagine Max starting, and it does clean up so many choices, and it gives you, like, remember a couple pods ago, I was like, man, I know Kenny really likes the idea of the Dennis, Keon, Jalen subgroup so they can come in and mess stuff up, but, like, I just think, Jalen, you need the versatility. It's like, oh, well, you could just have Max start and then still do that if you want. Yeah. Like, you just have all these options. It does. Wade at the backup four preserves so much. I mean, obviously, I just could not be more steadfast in my belief of that. I think Dean best serves our team when he is playing as a backup four and able to steal some minutes at the five when needed, as opposed to playing at the three at this point, just because of, I just think we've got better options than we once did at that small forward position with Jalen and Max, both now available. But yeah, Max he gives you a little bit of everything. He gives you some of that Jalen playmaking and toughness. He not quite the perimeter defender, or at least wasn't in this game. I'm interested to see how his feet get chopping as the season moves on. Can rebound well for his position. adds the movement that Sam can provide, but without, giving up the size. He's an awesome player. There's a reason he's one of the highest compensated role players on the team. It's because he's awesome, and he's been awesome for this group.
Yeah, and I was happy to see. Obviously, I think it'll be a game time decision, but with that injury update, it wasn't. Hey, Sam Merrill's also ruled out for this road trip, right? Like, it would be nice to get him back in the mix, but it's just kind of understanding that most of the options the Cavs have are these 6'5" guard wing hybrids, right? And some of them, Jalen and Max, are strong enough that they can play up. But for the most part, you're going to be playing smaller in a lot of situations. So having Dean as that second big throughout all of those stagger minutes is basically the only path to not being small when you're out there, right? It's if you have that, then at least it's okay. Well, James Harden's out there with a couple other 6'4", 6'5" guys and two larger players out there. Like, you're okay from a size standpoint. But as soon as you get to these like 3, 4, 6'5" and under lineups, you're just giving up a lot on size. And I think that they are capable of doing what needs to be done on the defensive end with those groups. It's just there's less margin for error. It's a little easier for teams to get offensive rebounds against those types of groups. And at the same time, sometimes when teams downshift like that and they have shorter guys, you gain a lot in individual offensive creation. I don't feel like that's necessarily the case, right? Like when it's Keon and even some of these guys like Sam that have taken a step forward as an individual creator, it's not that level of dynamic off the dribble creation game that some of the smaller ball lineups around the league have necessarily.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to talk about Evan before we get out of here. The splits are looking pretty promising for him. In the month of December, he's up to 20 points, 19.9 to be exact, 9 boards, 2.6 assists, and just under 2 blocks at 1.9. Shooting 60% from the field, which is a huge improvement on his 53% for the season, which has been one of my big like whenever I've expressed concern about Evan's season, it's been like wah wah wah. Look at the field goal percentage. He's at 53% and he's 7 feet tall. That needs to get up. The shot diet has to get easier. Finishing has to be better, and we are seeing that. And I guess my very radio-ass question to you is, are you more encouraged by the fact that we're seeing this stretch of really, really strong play from Evan in all these other facets of the game, or more concerned about the free throw shooting, which is down to 51% for the month of March, and he is 6 for his last 17?
I'm more encouraged. And Evan playing well like this, to me, it's similar to why I have confidence in the Cavs, even when they go through these ruts where they aren't playing particularly well, right? Like, I said this type of thing was going to happen when they were playing well, right? Like I said, they'll recover, they'll have another stretch where they disappoint, and then they'll probably go on another run. Like, those types of ebbs and flows happen. I have seen, even though this has been a disappointing year for Evan, I have seen stretches where he looks like he did last season, right? Like right before that second calf injury, I thought he was playing great basketball, and he has looked more like himself. I thought he was our best player in both of these games against Dallas. He was probably
I think that's fair.
I think he was the only one that consistently played well.
And he actually was working on defense pretty well.
To me, the free throw shooting is obviously concerning because that's one of those margin things, right? Like, we understand that the Cavs are at best going to be an average defensive rebounding team. We understand that with the changes at the trade deadline, they are now going to be a higher turnover margin team, right? Like they are going to turn the ball over more. James Harden already has more 6 turnover games than Darius had in the last 2 seasons, or as many. Like, you're already losing a little bit on the margins in those spots. You can't also lose that at the free throw line, right? Like, all of a sudden that just becomes too many variables, too many areas where it could hurt. To me, it's concerning, but I do think that it's something that could just turn around And it's like, oh, that was a really weird thing because he has shot better from the free throw line throughout his career. And the weird thing is, like, you look at the 3-point shooting, he's still taking those shots confidently. Sometimes, they just kind of flow in a rhythm. It's very clearly just kind of like in his head at the free throw line, I'm in a rut. I need to get out of this rut type of thing, right? Where I almost think he should not, like, just change up the routine. When the ref passes you the ball, take it like a catch and shoot shot. Don't hesitate. Don't think about it. Like, just fire away right away, and you might do better there. It's obviously, it's that one thing that isn't clicking right now. But I think he is playing so much more confidently on the offensive end. He is getting into his moves really quickly, and the passes he's making is encouraging. Like, this feels like all NBA Evan Mobley. It's just this one part that isn't coming along for the ride.
Yeah, it's I agree with you generally that it is more encouraging that we're back to good finishing, impactful rim attacks that feel crisp, get slower. He had a play in the win against Dallas where he just cooked Dwight Powell. Like, like Powell had no shot to keep up. And like those are the plays and the kind of mismatches you want to see abused. Like, I was listening to Danny Cunningham on Locked On Cavs, and he was mentioning like, that's not always something we could say about Evans, that okay, he's got a very favorable matchup. Is he going to abuse it? And he did in that first Dallas game. He was more quiet and had 18 points in the other game, but like those are the trends you want to see. On the free throw side of things, it's it certainly feels especially bad right now for the whole team. I mean, we had James Harden miss 3 straight free throws, at one point, and they're 5-6 in their last 11 games. I want to say, actually, I don't know if that's true. Hold on.
Look at you making up stats. Usually that's my domain. What are you doing here, buddy?
NBA.com is confusing me. Yes, they are 5-6 in their last 11 games, and they are 28th in free throw percentage in that stretch, that 72.8%. So it's just, they're leaving 6 points a game at the line right now. And that's a lot of points, Justin. And, obviously no one's going to shoot 100, but like you go up against it, like there is like that kind of pit in your stomach feeling when you play against a team like Boston, where you just know like they're just going to make every free throw at the end of the game. That's just what it feels like. Yep. And that's obviously not true, but I literally just sorted by top percentages in that same 11 game stretch. Boston is first in the NBA. And like, these are the kind of margin plays where it's like just it's within your control, but it's kind of not within your control, because obviously there's a huge mental component to free throws. But I actually would zoom out a little bit from Mobley and just be like, hey, whole team. Like, I don't know if it's a focus thing. I don't know if it's a Zen thing, but like,
maybe it's a fatigue, bouncing around city to city a little bit. Like you do see that sometimes here. So who knows? But it's the least sexy thing to talk about, because there's no analysis other than, hey, you got to make them.
Yeah, sure hope they're made. I did at least want to bring it up. One small little note, and I was so tickled to have this backed up by some positive lineup data, Justin, because Kenny has made a small, probably by necessity, lineup tweak when this team has been so beat up the last few games, which is that earlier in the year, if Jarrett was missing time, it would just be Evan plays exclusively at center now, and Thomas Bryant eats whatever minutes Mobley is sitting.
I'm happy you brought this up.
And we've seen little stints of Mobley playing next to Bryant, which is fun for two reasons. Reason one, it's Mobley next to a stretch five. We've been waiting to see it for years. And we are seeing it. Like, it's cool to get some good tape on like how he can operate with another big on the floor that can protect the rim if he's in position, but needs to be in position and can stroke from three and be guarded out there and give Evan a little space to operate. And I just think it goes to show you how good Evan is as a power forward, because the Bryant at the 5 minutes alone, I think those are the ones where you really are seeing the wheels fall off defensively. But in 62 minutes in the 14 games that these guys have shared the floor together, so very small sample, they've got an 89.7 defensive rating and a 112.3 offensive rating. That's a 22.6 net. And it just, you think about Thomas Bryant as the guy that, hey, we need him to go fill a gap for a minute. But sometimes it's nice to take a limited but helpful role player like that and say, we're going to help you by giving you the ultimate Swiss Army knife defensively and just let you do you. And so those minutes have looked really, really good. And if I'm Kenny, while I wait for Jarrett to get back, I'm more likely to lean on Dean as my 5 in my no big minutes or my no Evan minutes than Thomas, because I think the Thomas Evan pairing is working really well.
Hey, this is why I wanted Jay Huff in the offseason and even at the trade deadline.
Huff, what a guy.
Like I just think, hey, if you can get a stretch 5 next to Evan Mobley, even in those staggered minutes, like I'm perfectly comfortable with that, because I just think that he is a different level of dynamic on the defensive end of the floor. And I also think it seems to help him offensively when he's playing as a power forward as well. So I think that's a really, really smart note by you. The other kind of rotation note is Naquan Tomlin got some burn in both of these games. I thought he's looked pretty good in both of them.
He needed some nice, in that blowout, I thought he needed some nice low stakes. We're winning this game no matter what you do minutes.
Yeah, so this probably
he played a little freer.
This can be filed under generic plays, but it was nice to see Naquan out there.
Yeah, agreed.
Getting some run, and I thought he played well in it, which, if we're worried about size and whatnot, getting Naquan Tomlin back on track would be a nice thing to accomplish over these last 14 games. So, but obviously we are now heading into this road trip. We'll see how the Cavs do. Starting off with a game against the Bucks, it does not appear like Giannis is going to play. If there's already an injury update, I would assume that it says that he's out. So should be a win, but we've also seen the Cavs.
Giannis is questionable. I had the injury report up already, as is Miles Turner.
Okay, well, we have played down to her competition, so let's see if the Cavs can play better in this one. And to that point, I actually had some stats, so maybe I'll just say this before I wrap this up. We are 17th in net rating versus bottom 10 teams. We are 6th in net rating versus top 10.
Let's go to the chip, baby. Only playing top 10 teams the rest of the
way. we have definitely been playing down to our competition, so let's see if we can break that habit and get some wins here on the road trip. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, your review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. We want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat. Send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.